know who their targets are and where they are. So if Israel is being precise in this regard and not intending a genocide, which we're going to be very precise in the definition as well when we do the open flow dialogue, then why do we see Israel repeatedly committing things such as carpet bombings in places such as Gaza? Undirected bombs. We see 2,000-pound bombs being dropped in Gaza, undirected. And somehow Israel has the ability to know who their targets are and where they are. Very interesting. Now, she makes a claim more precisely, and she says that the Arabs, and if I'm not mistaken, she's referring to Muslims as well, individuals that are trying to genocide the Jews in this land.
20 seconds.
She said that this is a claim that is being made. We're going to have to go even further in that. I'm going to start speaking faster. Now, what's interesting is we see historically the exact opposite going on. We see the Muslims and we see the Arabs historically from hundreds of years ago defending the Jews, protecting the Jews from people such as the Christians, Catholic Christians trying to genocide the Jews. We see instances. Sorry.
That's your time. Okay, so you have 1 minute to respond, Maddie, and then 1 minute for Korra. Go ahead. Your time starts. Let me fix the timer. Go ahead.
Great. So when I said Arabs, I meant exactly what I said. I said it because I meant it. I didn't mean Muslims. If you look at the PLO, the PFLP, right? These were overwhelmingly Marxist. These were people who didn't necessarily attribute to a specific religion. They were just people that hated Jews because it was the trendy thing to do so. If you look, for example, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, al-Husseini, quite literally met with Hitler with the intention of supporting the Nazis. He wanted to annihilate the Jews in the Middle East as well. I would hope for your own sake that you do not subscribe Islam to a Nazi ideology, because I certainly don't. That's not what I stated. If you look at what Israel is doing, right, you've made a lot of empty claims. You said that they used undirected bombs, that they didn't know what they were doing. You tried to mention a 2,000 bunker buster bomb, but unfortunately it is Hamas who decided that their own civilians' lives are just not worth protecting. It's why they've embedded themselves in every aspect of civilian society. I'll leave it there.
Okay, Korra, you have 1 minute starting. Now you can go ahead.
All right, for sure. So I'm going to pick up right at the end of what she said. She said, okay, well, we have a claim going on here, a claim that there are undirected bombs being dropped on the Palestinians and that Israel does not know what they're doing. Now, I have sources for all of these claims. And she made the claim explicitly that we have Hamas embedding themselves in hospitals and all of these places and things of that nature. We can go even further in that when it comes to the open flow dialogue. But unfortunately, maybe this isn't something that's too popular in terms of this debating scene, but we're going to need evidence, and sources on every single claim that's made against, for the fact that Israel is not committing a genocide in this particular regard. Now, another point that was being made is that individuals, specifically Arabs, have been trying to essentially eradicate the Jews just because they're Jews and it was a popular thing. Again, we're going to need evidence for those claims as well. That's also going to go on in the free flow. But the point that's being made here is I can read a multitude of sources where we see multiple instances where Israel is in fact carpet bombing Palestine, specifically Gaza in this regard, the imaginary state that she tried to call in her, what is it called? All right, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I want to start and see if Maddie, if you want to begin the free flow discussion with a question that you could pose, or we could just, whoever has a question could just start now.
Sure. So you're making the claim that Israel is committing a genocide, something that you've yet to actually substantiate. Like I said in my opening, genocide has a very specific threshold requiring dualis specialis. That means that you have to prove that the Israeli government has the intent to carry out a genocide against the Palestinian people. If that were to be the case, then you'd have to look at the history of it. Pretty much since Israel's existence, people have been claiming genocide. This would have to be the world's slowest, worst genocide that we have ever seen, that 76 years later, the Palestinian population has done nothing except grow. You have 2 million Arabs living with full rights in the state of Israel. You have seen Israel try to make peace and offer self-determination to the Palestinian people on 7 different occasions, all which were turned down while they laughed in Israel's face that they were not there there in good faith. You'd also have to prove that these military operations are with the intent of killing the civilian population. I'd love to know, Korra, does Hamas have any military bases? Why does Hamas have 200 miles worth of terror tunnels underneath the entirety of the civilian population? Why were Hamas leaders such as Mohammed Sinwar found killed underneath hospitals in Gaza? Why did even the UN, who is openly, notoriously anti-Israel and even had employees that participated on October 7th, openly admitting that schools were being used in order to store weapons, with over 20 ammunitions found at just a single children's school in Gaza? I would love to know what your explanation for this is, and if somehow Israel should just sit there and not respond because Hamas made this decision.
Okay, let's break down something, and I'm going to do it very simply with a question. I'll start here. So you made the claim that there are tunnel systems embedded in hospitals, correct?
There are tunnel systems embedded throughout the entirety of Gaza, but I would also love you to answer some of my questions
Well,
because
wait,
you
yeah,
completely
I'm
ignored all of
engaging.
them.
Wait, hold on. I'm engaging with that because that was one of the claims that you made in that like long series of speaking that you were doing. So you made the claim that there were tunnel systems embedded in hospitals, correct?
I said there's 200 miles worth of terror tunnels underneath the entirety of Gaza.
Okay, and in your opening statement, you said that they specifically embed themselves under hospitals, correct?
That they embed themselves in civilian societies.
No,
She's
you
not
said
answering
hospitals
the
explicitly
question.
in your
No,
opening
I
statement. So
used
is there evidence for
hospitals
that?
as so I think you might be conflating two different points. I said Mohammed Sinwar was found deceased underneath a hospital in Gaza, but for the tunnel system, it's throughout the
He
entirety
wasn't
of
though.
Gaza, including underneath
It
hospitals.
wasn't though.
Okay, and what's the evidence for that?
But is the thing with
Missed the
never mind, that's
point
another one.
part
Wait,
where I said
wait,
Mohammed Sinwar was found dead under a hospital.
yeah, and I'm asking you
No,
what's
that's the
evidence.
same guy who got killed like on a roof. This is what they used to say about him. Like they're saying like he was hiding under hospitals and stuff like that, but he ended up dying on a on the upper floor, just to you see the irony, and they keep repeating the same thing.
His body there. If you want more
He
examples, I
was
could
not
give you.
no he was not found under a hospital. That's just a lie.
Openly was associated, a direct member of Hamas actually since 2010. He talked about the fact that they had stored ammunition there, and there were also tunnel systems found underneath there. There's hostage testimony of hostages who were dragged to hospitals and kept there basically to hide from the IDF. They were not being medically treated. In fact, many of them were severely medically
Well, she's
neglected.
spitting nothing but
Sorry, I
lies.
don't
Like
know
the
what the hell this
script is
person's saying.
crazy.
But yeah, that they were severely
It's
medically
basically
neglected.
shotgunning everything. Like
We
Hamas,
look at
Hamas,
the
this,
Al-Shifa
this,
hospital,
Hamas,
where there was
Hamas,
also
Hamas, this.
a
Like,
explosion inside of it that was later found to be from a PIJ rocket. The list really goes on and on, but I would love for you to also answer my questions, right? Because you made a claim that Israel is committing a genocide, right?
Yes.
Genocide has a very specific definition. The definition means that you have to meet dualis specialis. So could you show me any evidence that Israel is specifically having the intent to genocide the Palestinian people?
All right, that's a good point. So previously, now maybe I'm gonna have to be a bit more clear in this regard, but I am gonna answer the questions that you asked as well. So I didn't ask you to give me more examples, quote unquote. I asked you to cite evidences for the claims that you were making. So when you make the claim that we find somebody's body under a hospital, I'm not asking you to give other examples of instances in which we see tunnels under hospitals, quote unquote. I'm asking you for the evidence that you derived this claim from. But now I'm gonna answer your question.
And I
right?
responded, right? I said that the IDF had retrieved his body successfully from there, which is also on video.
That's not you citing an evidence. That's you making a claim.
That's just
But
I just
irrespective of
added
that,
like
now I'm
answering
gonna have
a
to
claim
answer
with
your
more
question, right?
claims.
You said, okay,
Like,
how
this is
exactly do we
ridiculous.
prove that
That's
Israel
not how
is
you prove
attempting to
anything.
commit a genocide or
That they have the
committing a
intent to
genocide?
genocide the Palestinian
Yes, absolutely. Do you agree that we can infer intent from actions?
Not entirely. I think that you'd have to show me some specific military objectives that directly show a disregard for the Palestinian safety that do not coincide with valid military objectives.
Okay, so you said not necessarily exactly, right? So we can't independently infer intentions from actions or
No,
on its own?
no.
Okay, so let's do this then. We're gonna have to appeal to something as simple as this speech. Now, are you familiar with the clip where Benjamin Netanyahu explicitly compares what's going on in Palestine with the Amalekites?
Amaleks.
And are you familiar with who the Amalekites were?
Yes.
All right, who were the Amalekites?
They were the biblical enemies of biblical Judea.
Okay, and what did God say that you were supposed to do to them?
That you are supposed to annihilate them.
Annihilate all of them, correct?
Yeah.
women, children, infants, camels, donkeys. Does that sound like genocide to you?
No, because when you're looking at it, Netanyahu was
This is
specifically
crazy,
referencing
man.
Hamas in this
This
speech. What
is
you're trying to do is
absolutely
take things out of
disgusting.
context.
What's wrong with
And
these
if you're
people?
going to go down the route of using words in order to infer genocide, then I'm
If
going to
that's
have
not
to ask you
genocide, I
to
don't know what
basically
is.
excuse a lot of
Hey,
statements that have come out.
basically, they made up their own definition about genocide and say, okay, if this is our criteria for genocide. If you don't meet this criteria, then that's not genocide. And then they go ahead and literally bomb tens of thousands of Palestinians, right? And then you got debates, stupid debates like this. People are
Direct
dying
odds with the
because
actions
we
that the
don't
IDF
have
has taken, like I said,
common
through evacuation
understanding
notices,
about
even
what
risking their
genocide
own soldiers' lives as
is.
well as the lives of hostages in order to give Gazans time to leave, despite the fact the Gazan population overwhelmingly supports Hamas.
Okay, perfect. So the point that I was making is you made the claim that Benjamin Netanyahu was specifically talking about Hamas. Now, I've watched the entirety of the clip, and nowhere is Hamas mentioned whatsoever. So I'm going to ask, what's the likeness between the Amalekites and the group that he's speaking about? What's the likeness?
The likeness is that they are both enemies of the state of Israel.
Okay, and were those women, children, infants, camels, and donkeys enemies of the state of Israel?
In biblical times, but I would also like for you to focus on what's currently happening. And
What?
once again, please show me a military objective that shows a direct lack of care for the
She's going
lives of
back
the
to the script.
Palestinians, or even a step further, that they directly want to genocide them. Because again, what you're failing to prove is dula specialis, a
Yeah,
requirement of genocide.
Okay, yes, and the point that's being made is when we see Benjamin Netanyahu explicitly likening what's going on to the Amalekites, and the Amalekites were in fact genocided, then that in and of itself is an evidence of intent. Unless you want to
They were
say
not
that,
genocide.
okay, so killing women, infants, camels, sheep, and donkeys is not a genocide?
So this is through biblical times. Again, they were overall enemies of the state of Israel. I would love to know, right? Because in that specific speech, what Netanyahu also talks about is the extent in which they are
Well, in
taking to
biblical
minimize and
times,
prevent
that
civilian
is
casualties.
considered genocide. But today, we have a different understanding about what genocide is. We got different criteria.
Objectives have shown that Israel is trying to annihilate the Palestinian people. Because I will show you not just quotes from Hamas leadership, not just quotes from Palestinian Authority leadership, not just quotes from Arab commissions back even in 1937, openly stating that there is no country of Palestine, right? I will show you not just these words, but I will also show you the
Hello,
fact
Zen.
that Hamas and the PA and all of these other groups have specifically put forth military objectives to annihilate the Jewish people. So I would love if we could remove ourselves from biblical times, right? Because we are not focused on that. And if you could show me actual evidence moving forward that these words, which by the way, the Hague themselves literally has a quote about Amalek hanging up in their office, right? So I would be curious if you think that they are also trying
New
to commit
Muslim?
genocide. Show me
Congratulations.
actual, tangible evidence, not just words.
Wait, so we're not just going to use words. So what
I'll make it easy
exactly
for
do
you.
we use to
I know it's
establish
going to be a
intent?
little
Because
bit hard,
previously,
you
when
know,
I
for the
asked
start
you,
for the
can we
readers,
infer
but
intent from actions? You said independently no, which is why I went to speech and I went to what Benjamin Netanyahu said about Amalek. That's exactly why we got here. So the
Yes.
point that I made, and I asked you a question, it wasn't answered. You said that the likeness between the Amalekites and what's going on here is that they were both enemies to the state of Israel. I asked you a question. Were the women, infants, sheep, camels, and donkeys enemies to the states of Israel, which directly correlates to what's happening today because women and children are dying in Palestine at the hands of Israel at
she
extremely
literally admitted that
large
yes,
rates.
that
So
would
I'm going to have
be
to ask you very simply
genocide
because Benjamin
during
Netanyahu's
the biblical
he's
times.
very explicit. He
She
likens
literally
them
said
to
yes.
Amalek. Do you agree that the women, children, camels, and donkeys, as per what Benjamin Netanyahu is likening what's
She
going on
said
here,
yes.
are
She
also
literally said
enemies to the
yes.
state of Israel and thus are subject to annihilation?
Right. So again, I did answer your point. What I had said is that if you look, Benjamin Netanyahu directly in that speech, which you so conveniently leave out, is that he talked about how the IDF is specifically taking extreme precaution to minimize civilian casualties. You sitting there saying that we have seen a unusually
Tens
high
of
rate of
thousands of
casualties amongst women
civilians
and children
died.
is simply not
That's
true. Even the UN has
that's
come out and
by
openly stated that
trying
they
to
have had to
minimize
change the number of women and
casualties. That's crazy.
children casualties 3 different times, slashing it by over 50%, because when you go through the list of casualties, you will see people named Muhammad listed as women. You will see people that are 21
What?
listed as children. It also completely disregards the fact that Hamas is inherently committing a war crime through their recruitment of child soldiers. If you're familiar with something called the Saplings of Jerusalem summer camp, for example, they recruit children as young as 10 years old, in which they indoctrinate them with an extremist ideology, forcing them to believe that the Jews are the cause of all their problems, teaching them the quote-unquote correct way
Isn't that
to
exactly
kidnap
what you
Jews,
guys teaching
and
your
also
Jewish
teaching them
children?
how
There's
to
literally
execute people.
videos.
There are videos, and
Let's shut this. This is why I don't like to listen to women. With all due respect, like they're just opening the mouths nonstop. Like, isn't this literally what the Jews are doing? Like back, like in Israel, they're teaching their children how to, like operate guns and stuff. There's literally videos of them doing this, and they teaching them how to hate Muslims and hate Christians as well and everything. Like we see, like this is the propaganda. Every single allegation is a confession. Zen, by the way, I don't think I'm gonna have enough time because I gotta go somewhere as soon as this is done, maybe even before. If you got a question for me, just DM me on Instagram. I'm gonna be like active there when it comes to DMs. Okay, no, just never mind. You're just a troll.
IDF. Not a single one of them came forward when Israel offered a
If
financial reward
you
as
really
well
have a
as safe
problem, like a
evacuation to
question
give
about that, there's a
information on the
video
whereabouts
about
of the hostages.
that.
So
You
again,
can watch it on
please
my YouTube
show
channel.
me direct military objectives that would prove dualis specialis. Show me Israel saying or saying and acting alongside their words that they want to commit a genocide against the Palestinian, and also substantiate how, if that's their intent, they've been unable to do so for 76 years.
Okay, so I'm going to be 100% transparent with you. You went on, and my question still wasn't answered because it was a yes or no question. I asked you, Benjamin Netanyahu likens them to Amalek. Are the women, children, infants, camels, and donkeys enemies of the state of Israel? It's a yes or no question. Can I get a yes or no?
You can't, because it's a false equivalency.
Oh, it's a false equivalence, but you said that's the
Yes.
likeness between Amalek and what Netanyahu was talking about.
No, I specifically pointed out Hamas. If you
No problem. Like most people will bring up that it's like a forgery. It's like a lie that is made about the prophet, and plus it has like Christian apologist interpretation added to it to just basically insult the prophet. So most people who bring that thing, they're either troll or just there to insult the prophet. But if you're not aware of that, there's a video on my channel. Just look through my videos. You should find it, and I explain the whole thing.
say that Benjamin Netanyahu is making the claim that he wants to annihilate everybody, everything in Gaza. This is at direct odds with the actual actions that he and the military have been carrying out. Let me ask you a simple yes or no question. If you wanted to annihilate an entire population from a land, right, that is your specific objective, would you give them evacuation notices prior to bombing a specific military zone?
Okay, to be 100% transparent with you, again, my question was not answered. I said, give me the third option if it's a false equivalence. Where's the false equivalence here?
I just explained it to you for, I think, the
No,
fourth
I'm
time
asking
now.
for the last option. He likens what's going on to Amalek. He never qualifies Hamas.
Amongst
You said, and
Hamas.
at the beginning, wait, hold on. He never qualifies Hamas, not a single time.
does.
Now the point, well, we can play it and we can hear it, but the point that's being made here is I began this conversation with how do we establish intent? I said, can we do it via actions? You said, no, not independently. I'm bringing you words where Benjamin Netanyahu is likening what's going on to Amalek, which is very obviously a genocide, unless you want to say that the women, children, infants, camels, and donkeys in 1 Samuel were enemies to the children of Israel, to which, I mean, that's a very questionable statement in and of itself, but the point that's being made is if actions aren't enough to infer intention, And these words, where he's likening it to a genocide within the Bible, are not enough. Then how can we establish intention? How? Does Israel need to come out and literally say verbatim, yeah, we want to eradicate all of the Palestinians? Does that need to take place?
Yeah, so actually, if you look at the speech itself, he specifically does say destroying Hamas. So you're wrong on that aspect of the speech. You would also, the speech that you use kind of defeats your own purpose, right? Because if you look at what he says throughout the entirety of the speech, he talks about minimizing civilian casualties. Is that what was done amongst the Amalek? No, it wasn't. Because again,
So
he's
why is it
talking about
quoting the
Hamas.
Amalek
So
verse?
I would like you to answer my question once again, because you can't just look at things through actions alone or through words alone, which is why I have asked you to directly link the words to the actions. The same way that I could show you, right, Yahya Sinwar's speeches in which he talks about annihilating the Jews. I could show you the military objectives from October 7th, the written out plan that includes massacring as many people as possible, including men, women, and children, and burning kibbutz to the ground, while on video, something that Hamas unfortunately did a lot of in order to instill fears in the Jews. And they also wanted to inspire an uprising in Judea and Samaria, as well as in Lebanon and the overall Arab countries, right? So I could show you his words, which, like I just stated, right, the Hamas military objectives. And then I could show you what was actually carried out, which was the October 7th massacre, in which they had the intent to kill as many Israelis as possible, going so far as to shoot 9-month-old babies point blank range, such as we saw with Mila Cohen, kidnapping 9-month-old babies, like we saw with Kafir Bibas, who was later strangled to death, with absolutely no regard for Israeli life, right? So I could show you how the words translated to the actions, meaning the dualis specialis. You have yet to be able to do that. What you have proven so far is that Netanyahu gave a speech in which he directly talked about minimizing civilian casualties, something that we could directly link to the IDF's actions. So once again, please answer my yes or no question. If you wanted to annihilate an entire civilization, would you give them an evacuation notice? Would you give them
So
roof
her
knocking
point
bombs?
basically is, if you want to commit genocide, you better finish off the entire civilization, or it's not going to be considered a genocide. So if they only literally murdered how many 70-80,000 people, civilians, women, men, and children, and animals, and there's a lot of them still alive, therefore this is not going to be considered genocide because they're still alive. A bunch of them are still alive. This is a ridiculous criteria for what genocide is. Like, this is what they're running right now, right? They have their own standards when it comes to what genocide is. And so if does not, if it doesn't meet this criteria, then it's not going to be considered genocide. This is a ridiculous, disgusting argument, actually. And
Sources from who were the sources that Hamas were doing anything to babies
there is no
whatsoever?
sources. That's the problem.
Yeah,
She's
so I
like,
just
she's
listed
like just
two babies
shotgunning
to
it
you,
and
Mila
just
Cohen.
making
I
claims
asked you
after
for
claims
sources. I
after
didn't ask you for
claims,
names.
spitting
Sure.
nothing but
So if you
propaganda. But
look,
there's
Hamas has
no
openly returned the body
evidences.
of Kafir Bibas, and the source of him being strangled to death would be the autopsy report that was unfortunately done. His little body did have injuries that were consistent with strangulation. The finger marks on his neck, the injuries that we saw in his neck, and this is something that's also corroborated by other child
Is
hostages.
Muhammad
Yigal
mentioned in the
Yaakov, during an
Bible? I
interview
don't
with
run this
N12 News,
arguments. We
talked
don't need
about
the
how
Bible
he
to
was
prove our
threatened to
religion.
be killed because he
But
was crying too
yeah,
loudly.
like
He was
you can
beaten
check.
with a
There's
piece of
interpretations
plywood
actually. You can check
because he
like
went to
Isaiah
a window
53,
without permission of his captors. And once again, Kafir Bibas's abduction
others.
is very public, right? It's on video alongside his mother, Shiri, and his father, Yarden, as well as his 3-year-old brother, Ariel. Now, Shiri, his mother, his brother, Ariel, and Kafir were all publicly murdered, and then Hamas paraded their bodies through the streets
Hey, look,
upon the upon giving their bodies.
crazy. Look how they speak. Like the entire time she's just shotgun, like gash galloping. Oh, Hamas, this, murders, this, like the whole thing, like allegations after allegation. I was like, what? Like, if you want to talk about this, okay, you let's mention one thing and then let's focus on that thing and let's talk about it. You know, bring evidence that this actually happened, bring eyewitnesses, testimonies, and stuff like that. She's all like the entire thing. She's like, just shotgunning random things.
It's
Yeah,
not
and
shifting.
then
When you
I
make a
just
positive claim, you present
yeah,
evidences.
that's fine.
And
And I gave
another
you
point
There's
that
no
you made. Wait, hold
evidences.
on. And
Korra.
I'm sorry.
No,
Another point
hold
that you
on,
made.
because unfortunately you made an outlandish claim that 83% of casualties in Gaza have been civilians.
Yes, and that
What
can
is
be
your source for
established.
that?
Yes, I do have articles in front of me that I can establish that using, but another
Great,
point,
so
and I
do
have
that.
to wait one moment, and another point that needs to be made is we're gonna have to catch you out on a contradiction. Did you or did you not say that Israel has, out of modern history, the lowest civilian casualty rate? Did
I
you not
said
make that
that.
claim?
Yeah, so what I said specifically is that John Spencer, the godfather of modern urban combat, a professor at West Point,
Bro,
stated that
now they're
Israel
just
has the
rage
lowest
baiting.
civilian to combatant
Now
death
they're just rage
ratio in
baiting.
modern urban warfare history
There's no way this is
regarding the
real.
war in Gaza. Now, could you
I thought we
please?
didn't know. Wait, but I thought we didn't know how many civilians passed away.
Yeah, so what we've been able to do is take Hamas's own numbers of who they've been willing to admit have been killed. And then from there, we've also been able to see the military advances, the direct military objectives, Israel going in and evacuating the civilians, right? So with Hamas's own numbers, we have been able to dictate that it is been 2
Evacuating?
civilians per 1 combatant death ratio.
Oh,
So could you?
so using Hamas's numbers, you said?
How does the
Yeah.
Israeli
So we
military
know that it's
evacuate
probably even lower.
civilians
okay, so
by
we
by
do know. Do we know or do we not? Because you just made the
massacring
claim previously.
the
about
whole
2 minutes ago
population?
that
We
do
saw the
not know how many
videos. We
civilians
saw the
passed away.
pictures.
You made a claim. It's
That's
Wait, hold on.
ridiculous.
Wait, hold on. Did you not make the claim
Where's the
that we
stream? It's
can't
on
know
Kick, I
how
think.
many
Yeah,
civilians
it's on
passed
Kick.
away? Did
No,
you
what
not
I
say that?
said
Sneako's
specifically is that the Gaza Ministry
Kick
of Health
channel.
openly admits they do not distinguish from
You don't want to.
civilians
You don't want to
to
watch me. Or
combatants.
anything.
No, you said
You just want to watch
unfortunately
you.
we are not
I'm
aware. And I
kidding.
asked you how many.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
asked
it's
what
on
I-
Kick's
percentages. You said we don't know, correct?
Sneako's Kick
Nope.
channel.
What I said is the
No,
Gaza
you did say
Ministry.
that verbatim.
I did not. I said the Gaza Ministry of Health openly admits that they do not distinguish from combatants to civilians.
And
Could you
what did you say
please-
right before? Wait, hold on. What did you say right before that? I asked you a question. You said, unfortunately, we do not know. So how exactly do we reconcile the contradiction between you saying we do not know how many civilians passed
Yeah, I
away
know
and
he's kidding.
simultaneously saying that Israel in modern history has the lowest civilian casualty rate? How do we reconcile those two contradictory statements?
So what you're doing is conveniently leaving out the other half of my sentence, right? Because I said in this specific war in Gaza. What you've also yet to do when asked for a source to
I'm
back
Muslim,
up the
yeah.
outlandish claim of 83%, you've tried to switch the conversation. So far, your only source was, I have articles. What are the articles, Korra?
All right, sure. Yeah, so we have an article right here on The Guardian where it explicitly states, that the civilian death rate in quote unquote selected conflicts, Gaza between 2023 and 2025 is 83%. Now I'll ask you a question even further on this. So
And what
of this,
source
wait, hold
does
on,
The
and of this,
Guardian
wait,
give?
one moment, sorry. And of this number, let me ask you a question. Since now that I've answered your question with a source, I want my question answered. How do we reconcile the contradiction between you saying we do not know how many civilians passed away and Israel has, and by the way, I asked you that specifically in reference to Gaza. So it is in fact directly correlated with the statement you made pertaining to modern history and Israel's essentially track record in terms of civilian casualties. So why did you end up contradicting yourself? In one moment saying that we do not know how many civilian casualties we have, and another moment saying that Israel has done a phenomenal job at essentially lowering the casualties of civilians and that they have the lowest rate in modern history. How do we reconcile this contradiction between these two statements that you made?
Yeah, so I'll answer
So
all
first of all,
that.
if you want
First
to
of all,
prove that, here's what you have to do: is you have to bring. You say, okay, here's the total number of people Palestinian died or got killed during that war, right? And you can see, okay, here's the civilians died, and here's how many of them were actually Hamas, right? And you're gonna see like, oh, so only 20% are actually civilians, and 60% are actually Hamas, right? And you gotta get the numbers, and then you gotta prove that statistics. But they don't. She literally said they don't have any statistics. They didn't care about statistics. They didn't care about killing children and women and innocent men. They didn't care about that, right? And she literally said we don't have any sources for that. You just take the numbers that Hamas. Well, by the way, for the Israeli government, everything is Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. For example, the article she just mentioned, the Gaza health ministry, for example, that's Hamas. Everything they say about the numbers, the people getting killed, and everything, that's Hamas. So she's saying out, okay, all the numbers that are mentioned in there, well, they take those numbers and then they add their own opinion upon it, which is just crazy. It's just ridiculous. Okay, they don't have any statistics. They don't have any sources to prove anything. They don't care, basically, right? We all saw like how they're literally just genociding people on our 4K TVs, and no one did shit about it. Actually, we were paying for those missiles with our tax money. Yeah, good job. Isaiah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not mentioned in Isaiah by name. I didn't say by name. He's described in Isaiah 53, and there's a lot of people who explain that. You can just Google. You should find something about it. I don't run those arguments. I don't care about the Bible. But there's others who talk about it. So
Since you want to go back to the beginning of the discussion, unfortunately, since a bunch of my questions weren't answered, we're going to have to go back here. The point that I made pertaining to the genocide is that I asked you for a criteria on how we establish intent. You said we can't do it based on solely actions, and based on the statement that I brought up Benjamin Netanyahu, apparently it's not enough to establish in word form. So I'm going to have to ask you very simply, how do we establish intent? What's the criteria?
Right. So I know that you're pro-Palestinian, but here we don't rewrite history. This conversation just took place 20 minutes ago. And what I specifically pointed out is that number
we are
one, you lied. Netanyahu did
pro-oppressed
mention
people.
Hamas in his speech. Number
If
two,
if
Netanyahu in that speech also talked about
if it was the
minimizing
opposite, for example, if the Palestinians were genociding the Israelis, I would stand with the Israelis, right? Because we're not pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. We're pro oppressed people. So if you're oppressing people, we're against you. That's all we are. And the same thing can be said about people are dying in Nigeria, whether they are Christian or Muslim. The same thing about Ukraine war. We're always standing against the oppressor. So when we see you literally committing genocide 24/7, bombing those innocent people, of course you're gonna have to say something about it.
You decided to do this. You said
Google
that
what
we
exactly?
need to see
Just
explicit
put
statements
the
that
prophet's
prove
name
intent, and then
next
we
to
need
Isaiah
to
53, or
correlate
just
it
DM me. I
with
can
actions.
send you some
We need to
references.
correlate it with actions, allegedly. Now, let's go ahead and go even further on this. So when we see in this press conference, Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, okay, we're going to liken what's going on to Amalek, even though Amalek wasn't just about combatants, which you're going to say, okay, Hamas, a group of combatants, right? Now, the point that's being made is that Netanyahu is likening it to Amalek as a whole. Not just combatants, civilians, women, children, camels, donkeys. He likens what's going on to Amalek. And then you say, oh, yeah, but he says that we're going to try to minimize civilian casualties. Well, to be 100% transparent with you, I don't really care if he says that he's going to do that when in the very statement itself, he says, well, remember what Amalek did, likening what is going on to Amalek. And it's so sad that we had to go back to this point because we need to break down the actual context of this biblical passage that he continued to bring on over and over again in this very conference. The point that's being made, and this is exactly why I asked you this question, when we're talking about Amalek, Amalek is not just a group of combatants. Amalek is an entire group of people, including innocents. And Netanyahu mentions them and likens what's going on to them. So you mentioned, okay, false equivalence, false equivalence, false equivalence. Unfortunately speaking, my friend, Benjamin Netanyahu's words work directly against what you said. God says in the very passage that he's talking about that you need to take them all out. Women, infants, sheep, camels, donkeys. Netanyahu takes this and ascribes it to what's going on. Now, if he's talking about Hamas, then we're going to have to think that he blundered here. Because the point that's being made with the passage that he quoted is that it's not just about combatants. God said to even wipe the innocents out. So do you agree that Netanyahu is using a passage where God commands to wipe out even innocents here to essentially break down what's going on and say, okay, well, we're going to liken what's going on to these very people?
So just to be clear, you don't have any specific military objectives by the IDF.
Wait,
that
can you answer my
disregard-
question? Can you answer
Yeah,
my question?
so I had asked you a question at the very beginning of
Yeah, and
your
I
whole-
cracked down on your criteria. So can you answer my
So
question,
you
please?
didn't answer my question, though.
Can you answer my question? This question was asked like 20 minutes ago. So can you answer
Yeah,
the question
and
now?
I answered it back then. I'll answer it
No,
one more
no,
time.
no,
Wait,
you didn't,
no one-
unfortunately,
well,
because it's a
Korra,
yes
I
or
did.
no.
Yeah,
It's
so
a yes or
I
no
did
question.
answer it for you. But just
Did
to
you
be
answer with
clear,
yes or no?
no, because there's more to it. I know that you're trying to paint
No,
it as
you
a
can
black
do
and white
you
topic,
can
but
do
it's
yes
not.
or no and then expound. You know, like it's as simple as that. So do
Sure.
you
So he's
agree that
not.
Netanyahu is using a passage about wiping out innocence in relation to what's going on here?
No.
So wait, so the Amalekites' innocents were not wiped out of the Amalekites?
The Amalekites were wicked, but what I would
Were the
like you to
children wicked? Wait,
let
wait,
me
were the
finish.
Were
wait?
the
I'm sorry.
donkeys
We're gonna have
wicked?
to.
No,
We're
you're
gonna
not
have
sorry.
to. No,
No, we're
we're
not
gonna
going to
have to
do
break this down
anything.
even
What we're going to
further.
have to do
We're gonna have to
is
break this down
actually
even further.
focus
Were the
on what's
children?
Okay,
happening.
hold
were
on.
the
I'm gonna
children
interject for a second. There was a lot
Were
of
the children
claims.
wicked?
Hold on, both of you, Korra and Maddie. I want to just bring up several sources because it was there were claims made from both sides, so we could verify. We could also watch the speech, but I don't want to keep on cycling in the limited time we have. So there was a claim from Maddie saying that Gaza Ministry of Health specified that they didn't make a distinction between civilians and military targets. And according to Table Mag, it does verify this. It says the number of civilian casualties in Gaza has been at the center of international tensions since the start of the war. And it says that they don't make a distinction. As well as the 83%, there's a verification from 972 Mag where it says 83% of the Gaza civilians were, of the dead people were civilians. And it was another reference to the Guardian source. And I just want to make sure that we get this correct. It says that the Israeli military has said it has located and identified the body of Mohammed Sinwar in the tunnels. That was a claim that Maddie made. That's verified by the BBC. And in the Guardian report, the first one here, it says Israeli military's own data indicates 83% of civilian death rates in Gaza. So apparently this is coming from the IDF. The IDF database listed 8,900 named fighters as dead out of the toll that reached 53,000. So this source is, there's been a lot more deaths since then, but we can, from these sources, the Guardian, it's saying that it's coming directly from the IDF. The IDF saying that figures presented in the article are, well, they also say it's incorrect. There's a quote here, but they verified.
Yeah,
it.
because so I could
yeah.
shed some light on that. If you actually look at the initial claim that came out, I believe the initial claim was from 972 magazine. The source that they used was an anonymous IDF source says, and then the actual IDF came out and said, we never actually said that. What they were doing was keeping a specific list of Hamas combatants as well as other militants that they were able to 100% confirm. This was not them coming out and saying that the 83% casualty rate was correct by any stretch of the imagination, and nobody has ever come out to verify that quote unquote anonymous source.
It
You
says,
can read it if you'd like.
Yeah, reading. I'm looking for where it says an anonymous source. It says that there's multiple intelligence sources, but I'm not
That
going
were all
to.
anonymous. That's from the 972 magazine, which is where that initial misinformation stemmed from. But Korra, can you name a single military objective now that
Wait,
meets the
whoa,
threshold
you're not
of dual
gonna you're not gonna
essentials?
move away from the question that I asked you.
Yeah, so
Is
I've answered
Netanyahu
it
quoting a
about 4
passage
times
that's
now.
no, I asked you, is Netanyahu quoting a passage about innocence being wiped out? You said no. You said that they were all wicked. Were the children, infants, camels, women, and donkeys wicked as
During
well?
the time of the Amalekites, they were wicked.
The children?
Through biblical scripture. Now that I've answered
Wait,
your
what?
question,
No, the children
yes,
were wicked?
I answered your question. I'm not
No,
going to waste more time on
wait,
it.
no, I'm sorry.
The Amalekites
You
during
have
the
to answer
time of the
question.
Bible were wicked. You could
I
take
didn't
that as
ask
you
about
like.
the Amalekites generally. I asked you the
I'm
children
telling you
and women.
generally.
And
I'm
wait, hold on.
telling you
I'm
generally.
asking you about the
This
children.
includes- I
I'm
know what
asking
you're-
you about the children. Are
Yeah.
you telling me that the children were wicked and God said to wipe them all out, and Benjamin Netanyahu's quoting this in relation to what's going on in Palestine?
He's quoting it in relation to what's happening with Hamas because you already tried to cut
Yeah,
that part
wait,
out
hold
of
on.
the
And
speech.
a passage that pertains to
Korra,
unaliving innocence?
You are
Wait,
at this time. No.
Unfortunately, wait, so the Amalekites, there weren't innocents within the Amalekites?
No, they were a people of wickedness.
The children weren't innocent?
You don't have to get your clip. You could just
they weren't
answer the
innocent.
actual
Wait,
question.
the children
The
children weren't
Amalekites,
innocent?
you could take this as you please, and then I am moving on. The Amalekites were not innocent in the time of the Bible. Where Benjamin Netanyahu specifically references this is when he is speaking about Hamas directly. Like I said, he also talks about minimizing civilian casualties. If you think that using the Amalek to talk about a group makes you genocidal, then congratulations, like I already established. You think the Hague is genocidal, as they openly quote them in their own main building. So now, I would love if you could do me a favor and answer my question.
Wait, hold on.
No,
You still didn't answer
do not
me.
interrupt
You
me.
still didn't
I
answer
just
me.
answered.
I
Korra,
asked you, are the
Korra,
children innocent?
I answered your question.
It's a yes or no question.
I
Are the
answered
children
your
innocent?
question. That is
So
the only
is a
answer
yes
you are
or
getting.
no?
To be,
Are
I think
the
she
got
did
the
answer the
answer.
question. She said in the biblical times there weren't. I want to ask both of you:
That's
Are you
what I'm
okay if I
saying.
play the
She
1
I
minute
did.
said
clip?
She says yes.
the
Yeah.
Amalekites were not innocent.
Which is
I didn't ask
ridiculously
you that though. I asked if the
disgusting.
children.
Palestinians are not Amalek, so that passage is not prescribed for them. So why is this even being discussed? No, there's a video that was done back then, that when they used to drop bombs on the Palestinians 2 years ago. Basically, Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said that, remember Amalek, and he was he is like doing he's comparing the Palestinians to the Amalek, right? So the Amaleks are the Palestinians, right? And in the same time, he continued bombing them and killing like them. So there's a passage in the Bible where this Amaleks, with God ordered Moses to kill all the Amaleks, right? And among them, even infants and children and donkeys. And then Netanyahu is quoting the same verse, which is called literally the genocide verse in the Bible. And he is comparing this verse to the Palestinians, right? And I know the Amalek is not about the Palestinians originally, but Netanyahu, what he did was he compared that verse to the Amalek, to the Palestinians, saying that the Amaleks and the Palestinians are the same thing, and that they are wicked, as they say. And even if we grant this understand, let's say they are actually wicked, right? That means they think, so these Israelis, the Zionists, think that all the Palestinians are wicked, including children, women, and men, and everybody deserves to be genocide. This is what they think. This is their mentality. Disgusting
On your
people.
screen, but it's not.
Oh, this is here. Here you go. Here you go. This is the
committed to completely
this is the video.
eliminate this evil from the world for our existence, and let me add, for the benefit of all of humanity, the entire people and all of Israeli leadership. We all embrace them and believe them. You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible, and we do remember, and we are fighting. Our brave troops and combatants who are now in Gaza or around Gaza and in all other regions in Israel are joining this chain of Jewish heroes, a chain that has started 3,000 years ago from Joshua ben Nun until the heroes of 1948, the Six-Day War, the 73 October War, and all other wars in this country. Our hero troops, they have one supreme main goal: to completely defeat the murderous enemy and to guarantee our existence in this country. We've always said, never again. Never again.
It's not your country.
Is now.
Okay, that's the reference, I think. But again, if you recommend people watch the whole speech if you want to, but there's that section. We can go back.
Thank you.
All right, for sure. So you can restate your question.
Great. For the sixth time, Korra, could you name one specific military objective by the IDF that completely disregarded the well-being of the Gazan civilians with no specific security intent by the IDF? Go
Okay.
for it.
All right. Well, let's ask you very simply. Is carpet bombing specific areas in which we can see no evidence whatsoever of which there is some sort of Hamas target or whatever it may be, would you say that that is a disregard for civilians in the area?
I would ask if you could show me a specific military objective that
I'm
says
I'm
to
I'm asking
Mhm.
you a question.
You're
Would
like a
that be
robot.
considered
Yeah, so
a
you're
lack of consideration for civilians? Carpet bombing?
carpet bombing areas in which you claim that
Living
there's
areas.
no, so
Yeah.
no proof of Hamas existing.
Yeah, there was no evidence presented that there were some sort of targets in these areas whatsoever. Would you say that that is an instance in which we can say that there was no consideration for the civilians in that area? Would you say that that's an evidence?
I would say, please show me the military directive.
Well, wait, I'm asking you a question. Would that be an evidence?
You're asking me a question in regards to my question of asking you for a
Oh,
specific
Lord.
military directive.
I'm asking you for a criteria. See, this is how debates have to go, right? When somebody asks you for an evidence, I ask you, okay, what criteria are we utilizing? Would you say that carpet bombing is an evidence that there is no regard for the civilians in a particular area, that area in which is being bombed? It's a yes or no question.
Great. So when I said, show me one specific military directive.
It's a yes or no question. Can you please answer? Would that be an example?
Right. But again, I asked you a very simple
Would
question.
that be an example? Can you please
Korra,
answer? Can you
what
please
would-
answer the question?
No,
Listen,
because I
in
asked
order
you a
for us to
specific
engage
question.
in order for us to engage
Korra,
in good
Korra,
faith, you're gonna have
Korra.
to answer the question. Would that be
What?
an evidence under your criteria?
What was the question that I asked you?
I'm asking you a question.
What was
Are you
the
gonna
question
answer?
that I
Are
asked
you
you?
going to answer?
Sure, there has been no carpet bombing of Gaza overall.
I
for
didn't
starters.
ask you that. I didn't ask you that. I asked
Right. So
you,
I don't
would
have to play
carpet
pretend, right? Because the facts are on my side.
I'm not asking you anything apart from, would that be an example of a lack of regard for the civilians in said area? It's a simple yes or no. Would it be an example under the criteria that you posited?
I don't know. I'm not too interested in playing pretend. Could we talk
And
about
I'm not
what's
too
actually
interested in you
going
not
on in
answering my
Gaza?
and I'm
What a
not too
bitch.
interested in you not answering my questions. Can I get an answer to my question? Would that be an example?
I'm just not used to playing pretend about what's
And
happening
I'm not
in
used to
Gaza.
people not answering my questions prior to this debate specifically. Can you please answer
Oh,
my question?
You mean like you refusing to give
Can
a
you
military
please not answer my
directive?
question? Can you please answer my
Salim,
question?
walaikum
Would that be
There's
an
salam.
no
example?
Hello
carpet
from
bombing in
Russia. What's
Gaza.
up?
I
So
didn't ask you
unfortunately,
that.
I'm not going
Maybe
Forgot I'm
I'll
live
have
on
to
Twitch
repeat
as
my
well. It's
question.
crazy.
Would that be an example under your criteria?
So there's no military directive.
Are you going to answer the question? It's a yes or no.
What she's even
I
asking?
don't play pretend.
And I don't like it when people don't answer my questions. Can you answer?
The feeling is mutual. Can you name a military
Yeah, can you
directive?
answer my question? Would that be an example of a lack of civilian
Name one
consideration?
military directive, Korra.
Would you
Name.
answer my question? It's so simple. It's
What
genuinely
area
so
of
simple.
Gaza did the
It's a
IDF
yes
carpet bomb?
or no. It's a simple yes or no. Can you answer the
All
question?
of it, bitch. Like,
Can you
are we
name
just gonna completely ignore all those videos, all those photos? Every single fucking inch of Gaza had been carpet bombed, and tens of thousands of like people died. Like, and you're gonna ask me like, where is that? Like, what the fuck are you even asking? Like, I'm sorry about my language, but this is just frustrating. Like, this is actually antagonizing. This bitch. This is what they do. This is what they do.
For.
Sorry
That's
about my
why I'm
language.
I asked for
clarifying.
a specific military directive.
And I'm
It
asking
doesn't get
you,
much simpler
would this,
than
wait,
this.
hold on. A specific military directive that shows a lack of consideration for the civilians in that particular regard. I asked you,
No,
is
no, no.
carpet
Look,
bombing
you
an
keep
example
cutting
of
off
such?
parts of my sentences.
I'm
said
asking you.
Uh-huh.
I'm asking
So here,
you.
I'll answer it this way. I'll answer it this way.
It's a yes or no question.
No,
You
it's
can
not.
do yes or no and then expound.
No. So if you could show me, wait a second. If you could show me a specific military directive from the IDF that specifically calls for the carpet bombing of Gaza, in which there has been none that has taken place, so you won't be able to show me this. But let's just say,
Yeah, but they did. Let's say there is no formal directive, military order for that, but they actually did carpet bomb the entire Gaza city. Like, we can see it with your eyes. Doesn't matter if there is an order or not. They actually did it. You can see the results directly.
if you could show
Like,
me
what kind
that
of an argument is
military
this? Just
directive, I would be absolutely gobsmacked. But
Yeah. Like it's ridiculous. Like, the Israeli military is not. They're not gonna go out there publicly and say, "Hey, by the way, tomorrow we're gonna carpet bomb the shit out of Gaza." They're not gonna say that. You idiot. Like what?
An example of a lack of consideration for civilians?
She's looking for a clarification, but it's a specific question. So I mean, if that falls under the criteria, she's asking for your specific criteria. I don't want to keep on looping and.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted a yes or no so we could do it quick. Like we could just break it down real quick.
Yeah, I just
would
want
it be
you
an
to show me
example?
the military directive. I feel like
And
I
I
what
just
I want
wait,
cleared.
and to be honest with you, I'm not interested in wasting my time. That's exactly why I'm asking you for your criteria prior to me even trying to posit an evidence. Would that be an example?
So my criteria is the definition of genocide. So what you would have to prove in order
What is
to say that Israel is committing a genocide is you'd have to prove dualis specialis. This is not my criteria. This is just the criteria. Dualis
I didn't
specialis.
ask about that, bro. Wait,
You
hold on.
asked for my
This is the problem.
criteria.
I
You asked
asked
for
you for
my
your
criteria.
criteria, and I asked you, would carpet bombing particular areas be an example of a lack of regard for the civilians in said area? To which I've yet to get an answer to that. So can you tell me, would that be an example?
Actually, you asked if it was in civilian areas with no proof that Hamas was operating from those areas.
Yes.
And
yes.
that
Would that be an
alone
example?
Of dualis specialis?
Would that be an example of a lack of consideration for civilians in this particular regard? That was my question.
With a specific military objective that says Hamas isn't here, but carpet bomb the shit out of them anyway? Sure.
Wait, so it's not about actions anymore, it's about speech?
I just told you that you had to link actions and speech, Korra. I don't know.
Wait, so let's say an individual says that my intent. Wait, hold on. So watch this. Wait. So watch this. Now this is getting beyond embarrassing. So now we need a direct correlation. Wait, yeah, no, absolutely. So we need a direct correlation between speech and action. If somebody outwardly goes and says, "I have no intent on completely and utterly massacring this group of individuals," and they do it anyways, is that no longer genocide because they claimed that they didn't want to?
Oh, by the way, it's not genocide because we didn't say it's going to be a genocide. Oh, by the way, they actually carpet bombed the shit out of the city, Gaza, right? They've massacred tens of thousands of innocent people. But since they didn't say they're going to do that, it's not going to be considered genocide. Okay, at this point, you know what? I'm not interested in listening to this bitch. Like, there's no need for this. This actually just proves how disgusting and evil these people are. Okay, if anyone is still supporting these sick Jews Zionists there, I mean, there's nothing else to be said or done to change anyone's opinion. It's out there, right? Thousands, not thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people are aware of that situation now. It's not like before, all right? All you had to do is cry one more time because this is what you do best. You know, crying about the Holocaust and all that stuff. When you got attacked, just cry one more time, and maybe the entire world would be more sympathetic towards you. But what you did, you showed your true face to the world when you started like massacring and and killing all those people. If you're still supporting Zionists, you're clearly in the wrong side of history. And there's nothing else to show you more. Like there's no need for this kind of debates and conversations with these sick individuals. I gotta go, guys.